All right, testing, testing, testing. Checking to make sure we are live and good to go. All right. Sweet. All right, so. All right. I think we're good to go. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Today is day 2 of our clay stream. Let me get us. All right, day 2 of clay stream. Going to go over a couple things today. Going to finish up this piece. Most likely going to hollow it. I left it uncovered for quite a bit yesterday, so it is pretty solid. The humidity in my apartment, just like the levels that it was at, didn't dry it out too much, so it's still a little tacky, but as you can see, it's not like squishing anything if I'm pressing on it. So yeah, we're going to hollow this piece today. I might just let it sit out as I finish up the little details, and I'm going to go over a couple other clay things this morning. Just like different techniques and different things that you can make with clay. I also will be sending out a list for the next couple days, because after I hollow this, there's really nothing I can do to work on it, so I'll just need it to dry a little bit more. So I'll be doing some activities tomorrow that if you have the materials at home, you should be able to do it. So we're going to be doing some salt clay making, research that, and learning how to paint with coffee and tea, depending on what you have. I'll be using some tea. Okay, so let's get started on this. I'm going to spend a little bit of time just kind of cleaning it up. So like I said, it has hardened a little bit. Now is the time that as I'm sculpting on it, it'll make a clean, straight line rather than squishing the clay. So the first place I'm going to work on is just the teeth, because the teeth kind of got squished together. I did end up going over the entirety of the surface of the piece with my paintbrush yesterday, just so I could kind of smooth it out and make everything a little more harmonized. So I'm going to kind of repair all the little details that I lost with the brush. If this is the first time you are joining us and you were not here yesterday, my name is Garrett Augustyn. I'm the art director for CreatiVets. CreatiVets' mission, if you're unaware, is to empower veterans using arts and music. So being that we're all practicing our social distancing, we thought it would be a great idea to kind of start offering some programs online. So this is the first stream that we launched yesterday, and we'll be continuing this week from 12 to 2 this week. I'll be on kind of going over ceramic sculpture, being that that's one of our key program components is ceramic sculpture. And then I'll also be introducing some other mediums that you can do at home. So this is entertaining to watch, but not necessarily no one necessarily has the access to clay just from having it at home. So if you don't have it, I'll be doing some things for the rest of this week that will, hopefully you can be able to make with things that are available in your house, and you can kind of join in on the clay making. I had a lot of people message me yesterday once the stream was down, just kind of saying that watching really made them want to sculpt things. And that was really cool to hear, but I really wish that, everyone had clay, because then we could do it all together and that'd be really fun. So again, this is just the tedious work. Yesterday I built this solid. So if you weren't here, this is a stoneware clay sculpture, meaning that I will have to cook it in an oven. The state I worked in yesterday was a plastic state of clay. That just means that it had the highest, move this. What's going on, Ryan? Salt clay. You can make that tomorrow. We'll do some clay sculpture. Actually, I have something to show Ryan. I was going to bring it in here. I forgot. Let me go grab that real quick. A little quick show and tell. My buddy Ryan is here. I have my sculpture that Ryan made during one of our programs. Still love the thing. I've been Ryan. I can't remember if I had texted you, but I just recently moved apartments during all of this craziness. So I've been unpacking my decorations, my art, the past couple days. So he will now be joining us in the studio. And then this, just quick talk, I make, in my own personal practice, I like to make all types of figures. So I put it on vessels, on cups, on jugs, on bowls, literally anything I could put a face on, I do it. And then this was a collaboration that me and Ryan made. Move that right here. Little tiny face jug. I made the form, and I'll actually go over how to make something as simple as a vessel like this for drinking. But then Ryan made the face. So Ryan, I've got this. I need to ship it out to you. So whenever all this craziness goes down, I want to ship that out to you. Got a question from Dan. Can you finish in a regular home oven? So for this stuff, I don't know if you were talking about the salt clay or this. This clay you cannot finish in a home oven. You'll need a kiln. So a kiln it acts as an oven. You can have an electric kiln, which can be used at home, or you can have a gas kiln, which usually tends to be a lot larger. You actually use gas. The electric kiln has these coils that heat up, and it's solely electric, no gas. They go up to 3,000 degrees, so you really can't do this in just like an everyday oven. You need a very controlled environment, because depending on what you're doing with the clay or the glaze, which I'll talk about that, I might not be able to do it because I'll need to fire this before I glaze it. But once you're done and you fired a piece one time, you make it into a bisque piece. And I don't think I have any. Oh, I do. I'll steal this from my partner. This piece of clay is bisqued, right? So there's no glaze on it. It's a little bit more porous. So when you bisque something, you take it to a lower temperature than the final temp. So in ceramics, we fire in cones. So this was taken to like a cone 04. So O means lower, 4. So when you bisque something, it's basically just kind of like saving your clay, right? It's like, this is what you want. Let's save it. Can't add any more to it. So once this is bisqued, I can't take clay and just add to it. I'll have to like glaze it, glue it, like do something else, but you can't add any more to this. Once you bisque something, you can't recycle it. So I know yesterday I talked about how you can save your clay, and I know Dan had asked, can you reuse the clay? You can reuse the clay. Now I've saved all the little clay bits from yesterday. I'm gonna start making some slips. So this is just, as you can see, it's drying out. This is the same clay, and I'll hold it next to it. And it's lighter, right? It's lost that moisture. If I add some water to this, it'll kind of break it down, and it'll make a slurry that I can reconstitute into clay. This, however, because I've cooked it in a kiln, I've baked it, I've fired it, you cannot break this down anymore. This is going to last for thousands of years just like this, right? Unless you took it to a super low temperature that it's super porous, it can be dissolved from just like water expansion. This is going to last. So once it's bisqued like this, then you would glaze it. And glazes, I don't know if I have any out. I don't think I do. Glazes is the surface. So for example, on my water cup, the clay, you can see the inside. Let me move it right here. It's like a white clay, and he put a clear on the inside, I would assume, so that you just see the clay. But on the outside, he's got this nice gradient of red and blue. He might have done a wash with a stain, right? Not glazed, but the difference is, I'll use this piece, this will be a little bit better. The clay on this one is a brown clay, right? So that's the actual color of the clay. But I glazed it so that it was like a dark brown, almost like an oil spot clay. And what the glaze does is basically like a thin or thick glass coating on top of your ceramics to seal it. The important thing about sealing your work is mostly for functional use, right? If I wanted to drink out of this, I would want the entire inside to be sealed with a safe glaze, a food safe glaze, because there's a lot of different types of glazes that could be not food safe. We'd want to seal it so that no bacteria can get stuck in there, right? If there's little tiny spots that I didn't glaze, over time, if I'm drinking out of it, I always use this as an example. If I'm drinking a glass of milk and a little bit of milk soaks into the clay, and I don't wash that right away, right? Let's say I just put it on my counter to wash, it'll kind of soak in that clay, and then it'll just kind of fester in there, right? And it's just not safe. Because over time mold could grow in the clay, and it also could just damage the piece, right? So if you have an exposed area of the ceramics and just water is soaking in there and expanding if it's cold, or kind of unsoaking, it's stressing the clay out, and eventually it'll just kind of either dissolve or break or all sorts of things. So we glaze it so that it can be sealed, it can be eaten off of. Check out your cups at home, your plates at home. Most of the time, on the bottom, you'll see that it's either the straight clay color, if it's a genuine clay piece, and you'll see that edge of glaze. The reason that you'll never see it on the bottom is because glaze, when you fire it, heats up and it acts like a glue sealant, right? So if this is sitting on a shelf and you've glazed the bottom, that's one of the things in teaching glazing. You never glaze the bottom because it'll heat up, that glass will kind of melt on the surface of the piece. Again, that's that flint, that silica, and it'll fuse it once it cools down onto the thing, and you have to break it off, and then you can't use it. So yeah, I don't know how I got on that. Oh, regular home oven. If you were interested in doing some oven baked clay, you can buy a lot of oven baked clay from, like, Blick is a good space or a good spot. Dick Blick, and then any art store, Hobby Lobby, Michaels, they usually have some oven baked clay. I'll be teaching how to make, just like going over a recipe that I found for salt clay. It's flour, salt, water. I think that's all it is on a basic level. There's a lot of different types of salt clay, but it's basically a hardening flour that you can bake in an oven. Most of the time people use it for like ornaments and things, but I'll go over that. I'm thinking we can do that tomorrow because I'll be done with this guy today, but we can go over just like an oven baked clay that you can potentially sculpt with or make something and cook it in an oven, and then you have a solid object. Now, it won't be as strong as ceramics, obviously, because you're not taking to that higher temperature, but it could be interesting to play around with once you fire it. Is that one of my ceramic coffee mugs? So I have a question from Dan. Is that why one of my ceramic coffee mugs retains crazy heat when I microwave it? So that's the thing with, in working with clay. Let's see if I can minimize this and not lose my camera. Nope, lost my camera. Let's leave that up. That's one of the things with ceramic pottery. If it's microwave safe, there's a lot of things that can cause it to get super hot. It could be a thinness of the clay. It could be the actual makeup of the clay, because like I said, this is a stoneware clay. It's a little bit different from an earthenware. So like this is an earthenware clay. Earthenware clay is more like the flower pots that you would see at a plant shop, right? They're a little bit more porous. So there's also like a finer type of clay, and let's see if I have an example here. I do. Again, I'm stealing a little bit from my partner's workstation. This is a porcelain slip-casted cup. And I can talk a little bit more about this. I haven't worked anything on this piece. I'm just talking. That's fine. A porcelain is like a finer clay, like a fine china clay. That tends to heat up a little bit more if it's really thin, because slip casting cups is when you pour like liquid clay into a mold, and then the mold dries some of that clay. You dump out the extra clay, and then you have this this casted object from it. But you can make really thin, nice pieces. So, Dan, to your question, sometimes your pieces will get hot just because the type of clay that someone may have used, or the thinness or thickness of a piece. If it's thicker, it can obviously hold more heat before it gets to your hands. I have a cup that I really, really like because your hand fits in there perfectly. It's like molded to the shape of holding it, but it's really thin. So when I microwave it, it gets super, super hot. And then for those of you not watching on Facebook, I will put together a shopping list of ingredients that you'll need for tomorrow's demo. And again, I've never made a salt clay before. I was doing some research on the types of clay that you can make at home with not having to go out to the store and buy something very specific. You might just have it laying around. So if you've stocked up on your salt and your flour, maybe you're doing some baking, you can also make some clay that you can play around with. These tools that I'm using, these are some really nice fine tip modeling tools. Found them a long time ago. I'll move this for a second. I came in here early and I kind of went through all of my tools. So I'm going to talk about tools later today as I'm working on this, to kind of go over just like things that you can use in clay making, because like I said, you can go to like a Blick and buy just like a ceramic starter pack. I've only bought one set of tools my entire career. That was when I started at SAIC. I had to buy it for a class, and it came with a sponge like this. It came with a fettling knife. I don't think I have a fettling knife here. It came with a trimming tool. It came with a rib. It came with a needle tool, and I've kind of upgraded my needle tools over the years. Right, like this. But then all my other tools I've collected just from, going to the best place to find ceramic tools, in my opinion, is like a thrift shop. You can find a bunch of things that you can repurpose and reuse. So again, I'm just going in with these modeling tools. Now I'm working on the fine details. So again, I went yesterday and kind of went over the entire surface of this piece with my brush. Right, and what that did was it kind of harmonized all the clay. So I broke down all those lines, so now it looks like wrinkles. It doesn't look like I carved a bunch of lines in his face. It looks like his face just has a lot of folds in it. Okay, just smoothing out that chest area, picking up all the little tiny boogers of clay that have formed. Now another thing is I made these stripes and I painted through them, but they kind of got little tiny gunky things all over it. And that was just from, as you're smoothing out your piece with a brush, you're kind of picking up clay particles, bits of clay that were like loosely on your piece. I'm just cleaning up the seam right now at the bottom, so I can clean my space. I also clean my banding wheel a little bit. This is a banding wheel, great tool. It's a Shimpo banding wheel, super heavy. Right now I'm just gonna go in, and I've got this see if you can see it, a beveled, can I focus on it? There we go. It's got a beveled edge, right? So as I'm going through the line, let it refocus, it's kind of flattening the sides, but defining that line. I'm just taking my finger to smooth out any extra clay that comes up. It's one of the things with ceramics, is you just got to keep working on it, because it's such a wonderful material that you don't have to finish in one day. Like I said, the clay that I'm using right now, I bought 2 years ago. I just wrapped it up real nice, stuck it in my closet, completely forgot about it, but it's still good. So if I wanted to keep working on this piece for the duration of the stay-at-home order in Chicago for the next couple weeks. I could. I'm going to try to finish this today, though. Or not just finish the details. I want to have the whole thing done and just like out and drying by the end of the week. Again, just kind of cleaning that stuff off. All right, that looks pretty good to me. Now, I was going to put a button on this shirt. I don't think I'm going to. I don't know. We'll see. Put in the comments below. Again, if you're watching and there's something very specific you wanted to watch, or something very specific art related you wanted to learn, now's your time. If you're just starting your artistic career and this is a good spot to kind of talk with me about different materials you can use, different mediums, right? Put a comment below. Message us on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitch, somewhere so I can see it and then I can do a demo on it. Because like I said, we want to customize this to what people want to learn, right? So again, if you're watching it on a service that you can share this. Send it to all your friends. Send it to some organizations that you know are doing things in wherever you're at. I'm out of Chicago, so I like to keep my Chicago organizations up in the loop with things. But yeah, just share this because you never know who needs to do something like this. And that's what we're all about here at CreatiVets is if someone needs something, if you've tried songwriting before, it didn't work, try art. There's a lot of things in art that you can do. If you've tried art before and that didn't work for you, that didn't help you tell the story that you need to tell, that didn't help you resolve a feeling that you have, try songwriting, try singing your experience. And I'm just kind of going over the seam of the hairline, right? Just that edge right here, my large widow peak that I added in there. And again, just redefining those lines that I made yesterday. They kind of got a little smudged away. It's all good. If I really wanted to teach you the most important ceramic lesson, which I've done with my students, I'll tell you a story about that, is at the end of this I would just smash the piece. Because a lot of the times when you're working in ceramics, things don't go out as well as you've planned. Things break, things fall over, things you'll make a great piece and you'll glaze it and it gets stuck to the shelf and then boom, you're out of a piece. So that's something that it's really important to learn earlier rather than later, that in art there's mistakes, but happy little accidents. For those of you that called me the Clay Bob Ross yesterday, happy little accidents. Okay, well, got a little teacher idle right here. I'll put that guy right. We're gonna put him right there while I'm working. So a couple areas of the hair I actually didn't add texture to. Like I said, I went in with the solid, big, thick lines first. And then I added those little lines for the texture. So I'm just going in and redefining that area. So I want my hair to stand out. Just put my website, do a little promotion. If you are interested in any of the work that I do, or just want to learn more about ceramic sculpture and think, hey, maybe this Garrett guy could make some cool figure things, check out my website, garrettleo.com. If you're watching it on Facebook, it's there. Dan's laughing. That's fine, Dan. Go on there, find a piece. I have a challenge for Dan. Dan, I want you to go on my website and find one piece, and you can use the title of it because I'll remember what piece it is, and just give me a comment or ask me a question about one of my pieces. Go do that right now. I'll give you a little homework. Now, tools. Because I'm going to do something that everyone's going to be like, what is he doing? You can buy really fancy tools like this, right? These are some really high-grade sculptors, right? This might be like $10, $15 at a Blick store to do to fine modeling. These are rubber-tipped, right? So they're softer. You can they're a little bit more flexible. They're not going to make hard lines, but you can repurpose a lot of things. So I'm going to take this this lag screw, this bolt. And I'm going to add some hair texture. Just kind of going over the surface. Smoothing it out with my hand. And that's just adding a little bit more. It's hard to see on the camera, but it's adding a little bit more just on the surface. Oh, I was going to say the story with my students. So I teach K through 12. And I love teaching clay because it's, what I love doing. And students, no matter what level of artistic talent they have, because they all have a level, right? Everyone's a practicing artist, is what I say in my classroom. You wouldn't say you're a great mathematician, but you could say you could practice math. I do this project where we do a pinch pot, and I'm going to teach you all how to make a pinch pot today. Once I'm done with the hair and the little details, and I'll have them work on it, and it'll take a whole class. It'll take about 40 minutes, 50 minutes, and then we have the cleanup. But they'll spend 40, 50 minutes on making this really nice cup that they're like, oh, this is fantastic. And then I'll take out a big bucket and I'll put it at the front of the class and I'll say, all right, squish up your cup, toss it in the bucket because that was your practice one. So just again, reiterating that when you're working in clay, things happen and things might break and things might not turn out the way you want, but you can always make more. And that's the great thing about art, is you can always make more. And we pride ourselves at CreatiVets for offering, these programs that you can kind of do whatever's attracted you. So we've had this program at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. Just a little backstory for those of you that are tuning in for the first time today, don't know anything about CreatiVets, may have seen this live stream on Twitch or wherever you're at. We offer a 3-week program, all inclusive for veterans, at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. And at those, when we're there, we base out of ceramics, right? We start in the ceramics department because both Richard Casper, the co-founder and executive director, and myself, we both love clay. So that's something that just people really connect with really fast. But we can kind of do any material, work with any material or medium that we'd like because SAC is such a wonderful place. But, if clay, someone might say, I really don't like clay. I don't like the way it makes my hands feel. I just don't like the way it looks. That's valid. But then let's try woodworking, let's try painting, let's try drawing. And SAC can offer all those things for our participants. So we've been really grateful to have such a wonderful relationship and program there for the past several years. All right, let me play a little catch up because I'm seeing a lot of comments. Oh, thank you. Looks sick. Yeah, man, I like it. If you're watching now, one of my friends came up with the title. I didn't plan any face in particular. I just kind of sculpted and see where it went. I'm a huge Johnny Cash fan, so it kind of started looking like a weird Johnny Cash. So my friend titled it Zombie Named Sue. So that's the working title right now. So if you don't have, or if you have a better idea than a zombie named Sue, put it in the comments below. You'll be in the winning category to name the piece. Let's see. What kind of clay do I work with? So this clay in particular is a stoneware clay. And I wish I had an example of it. I've never used this clay personally, but it's like a speckled white clay. So right now it's brown. That's something that is a big learning curve when you start with ceramics, is the clays change color, right? This orangey clay, when I was working with it, was this color. So you can see the difference. And this is the clay with just water, and then when you fire it, it completely changes the composition of the clay. So my piece here is like a dark brown. I wish I could keep it that color because I always love the way that clay looks with just water in it. But when I fire it, it'll turn to like a gray or white clay with little specks. The little specks of like brown and red is red iron oxide. That's one of the materials in the clay, and it'll give it little tiny like specks all over it that you'll see like almost metal coming through. So I'm very excited to see how this comes out. But like I said, there's tons of clay. If you go on Blick right now, so I'll keep using that because that's a pretty big name. You can look up just ceramic clay. Make sure it's not air dry, it's not oven baked, it's not a polymer clay, right? It's not an oil clay. It's something that has water. It's a water-based clay. You can see there's earthenware clay, stoneware clay. There's white, red. There's like a dark brown. There's like a dark blue. When I was in school, I actually learned that was something that I really liked was making your own clay. Being responsible for the thing that you're working with, making it by yourself. So depending on what your needs are for your sculpture, you might add different materials to it. So on my website or on my Instagram, hashtag or @manglazeblack, you can see pictures of a series of work that I titled Dark as a Dungeon. So I made these figurines, these coal miners that were life size, about 6 feet tall, 7 feet tall. And I made my own clay body. Now, the reason I made it was because the clay that was being made in the studio, like a standard clay that everyone could use, wasn't strong enough for me, right? So I was building super tall, and I was building things with coils, which are strings of clay, meaning I was going around and around and around building up. And the clay that I was trying to work with couldn't hold its weight, or it kept falling over because it was too wet, and I couldn't build fast enough. It couldn't hold its strength. So I created a clay that I added some components to it. So I added something called grog, which is once you fire the clay, you can grind it back down into these little tiny like sand bits, different thicknesses, different grades. And I added that to my clay. The reason I added that was because it allowed my clay to be a little bit, it allowed me to sculpt a little bit more. It had a little bit more strength in just building up. It was almost like working with concrete, building straight up. I had the consistency, the texture of concrete, but it was able to hold itself. So I added that grog to kind of add into the clay so that I can build taller, faster. So like right now, this clay, I had to let it dry before I could keep building up. That clay, I could just keep building up while it was wet. So I had a little bit more extra time that I could keep building with before I had to stop and let it dry. I also added a nylon fiber. So just a little bit, I'd make 200-pound batches, nylon fiber, maybe about the size of this brain. Toss it in a 200-pound batch of clay, and what that does is it would add all these little tiny like hair nylon fingers to kind of hold the clay. So if you rip my clay apart, you see these little hairs kind of holding it together. And what that did was, because I built so large and they were just freestanding, no support systems, nothing, I had to move them from my studio to the kiln room where I cooked it and where I fired it. And I needed it to hold its shape so it didn't crack, because it's very fragile. When all the moisture is out of your clay, it's the most fragile it can be. It's when it's bone dry. There's no moisture in it. So that nylon fiber held my clay together, just gave it a little extra sturdiness. Someone just asked me, Dan, I'll get to your... Dan, I'll talk about that piece that you pulled up. I like that piece. It's got a good story behind it. Someone asked me, do you paint them when you're done? So it's up to you. A lot of the times I'll make pieces, and I took that piece out of here. I don't know why I did that. But the piece that I had on yesterday, I might go grab it in a little bit. I didn't. I just left it the clay because I really like the way that clay looks in general. Just like the surface of the clay, you can do a lot of cool things with it, and just letting it look, dark brown or white or whatever the clay is. But you don't have to paint it, but you can. A lot of people will actually put paint on the clay. I think I've got a couple new people on here, so I talked a little bit about glazing. Glazing, for example, is right the shininess on like a cup. That's the glaze, right? If it's a ceramic cup, the glaze is like a glass sealant for the clay. So I will probably glaze this in the end once I've kind of got it all done. I fired it. But you don't have to paint it. But for this one, I think I will. I think I'll make him, I might leave the face clear, because the face will be like, it's hard, again, if you're just joining us now, this is, it's brown right now, but when I cook it, it should be like a whiter gray clay with little specks of like brown in it. So I might leave the face white. I'll make the hair black, and the shirt, maybe we'll do a bright, colorful color. That'd be pretty cool. Maybe I'll do a rainbow shirt, right? Yeah. So Dan, let me. I like been talking and not working. Let me work a little bit, and then I'll talk a little bit about, or probably a lot of it about that piece that you found. So if any of you want to see the piece that Dan is going to reference, or what I'm going to talk about in a second, if you go on my website, garrettleo.com, GarrettLeo.com, go to the page that says American Citizens. That's going to be the piece that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to kind of decide what I want to do with this, and then I'll go into some stories about that. Just kind of clean this up. And this isn't the most entertaining thing to watch because it's just me finalizing, but I'm glad to see all of you here. Happy to have you again, doing this so that find some sort of comfort in these days we're self-quarantining, that we're practicing the social distancing. It's important, but the important work never stops. So we have to stay together and keep working what we do. The naming competition is still going, Richard. So if you're just now joining us, the name currently for this is a zombie named Sue. Because yesterday he had a big old eye and it was a little bit more gnarlier. I kind of brought it back a little bit, made him look a little bit more somewhat of a human. So if you want to join in the naming competition, please drop in the comments wherever you're watching, because I'm seeing all the comments from wherever we're streaming. So if you're on Facebook or where else are we going right now? Facebook or Twitch or Mixer or YouTube, drop in the comments. We'll do a little poll on our social media once I get the new excuse me, the new webcam to make it a little bit clearer to see me once that arrives. I'll also be going live on Instagram. I'd like to do that because I know we have a lot of followers there that would love to be a part of the conversation. Now I'm getting into really detailed work now. I'm adding a little texture to his lips. Just like some lines on his lips, maybe a little chapped. Ooh, you know what? I think I'll ask you all, should I put some stubble on him? He hasn't shaved in a while. Any of you watching? Stubble, no stubble. Keep him clean shaven or stubble. Okay. Do I want to do that? I'm debating cutting in a little notch there so it's almost like this is a bad example. This is a little coal bust that I have. I was debating putting in a little thing right there, just carving out a little spot. We'll see. Ryan says 4-day stubble. All right, Ryan, you're the man. Let's do it. So for stubble, let me just show you a couple of my tools now. I'm just gonna poke little surface holes on it. Is what I'm gonna do. Charles Winchester III. Dan says, "Don't have a good name, but sure does look like a mad Ronald Reagan." You know what? That's really interesting because a lot of the pieces that I make, people always find like a politician that it aligns with. And if you follow my work or have seen any of my stuff before, mine can get very political, and it's 9 times out of 10 more about the politicians in power. So I like that it comes up, but didn't plan it. Didn't sit down and say I'm gonna make Ronald Reagan with it, but I can kind of see it. Stubble. So here's a couple tools that I have. This tool I use, this is an ice pick that I found in an antique mall. I used this when I was sculpting the giant figures for scoring. So scoring, for those of you just joining that were not here yesterday, this is the more traditional tool you use for scoring, along with a needle tool. To score something is when you're going to add things. So when I make a base for this, and I will make a base for this today, the base, I'll have to attach it, all right? And to attach pieces of clay, you have to do something called slipping and scoring. Slipping and scoring is when you'll take a piece of clay, and I'll grab an example one. because I don't want to do it on my piece. So let's say I wanted to attach this piece of clay just straight up right there, right? You would take a tool, like a needle tool, and you would score it. Sideways, left, right, making a little hashtag on there. And then you would put some slip on it or water. I've got a little cup of water here. And you would add a little water and you would score this as well where I want to attach it. And you'd attach it, we'll do a little twist on there. And what that does is, if this is the clay right now, can I do that right here? No, I'll just do this here. If this is the clay right now, and you attach it, there's nothing holding it on, right? But when you score it, you make little fingers, right? So then you have these fingers that when they're put together and that water or that slip is going in between the fingers, it glues it on, right? It makes it a more secure hold. So when I was making those big figures, everything was a little bit bigger. So I couldn't use a needle tool because it would take me 5 hours to do it. So I got this big ice pick, and I would score it like this, right? Same process. You could use a fork, right? Or you could use a needle tool. For the stubble on my big coal miner pieces, I often used this because I would just poke in the face where I wanted the stubble. I think I'm going to be a little bit more controlled with it this time, so I have this little wooden tool, little big toothpick, and I'm just going to add some 4-day stubble. Thank you, Ryan. I'm just lightly pressing. If I press super hard, it would make bigger holes, and I don't want that. And it's going to be very cartooned, very caricatured. It's not real. It's not how real stubble would look. I'll add it all the way up to the sideburn. Now, I was looking at this piece last night and I was thinking I was actually really proud of it. As I said yesterday, it was the first time I've ever streamed anything. So I was nervous that I wouldn't be able to focus on the clay piece because I'd be too worried about talking, but I can talk for a while. That's why I want to get the Instagram stream up tomorrow, hopefully, and bring some friends on, some fellow artists to talk about things. But thank you all for being here and sending your comments in, because it makes it easier for me to keep talking while I'm working, so I'm not just sitting in this office. See, it's starting to get, let's see. Can you see that? Bring it a little closer, I'll pick them up. Maybe I won't pick them up. Right? I'm getting a little of that stubble on there. Just a little bit. Put this guy back. These things are about 50 pounds each. These little spinners. Let's see. Alright. Putting in my stubble. Did I switch sides now? Making sure that my beard line is the same on both sides. This looks so different from yesterday. Yeah, that's something that, this stuff changes fast. I was looking at my time lapse. If anyone missed yesterday's stream, you can go on the CreatiVets Facebook page, Creative Veterans, and you can find a video from yesterday and see where this all started. Completely different from what it looks like now. And like I said, yesterday was kind of get the general shapes on there. Don't worry about details. Don't worry about textures or making it look real, because that's what today's for. So I got the stubble. I'm going to do some on the bottoms. Get a little lower here. Dan had brought up, I gave Dan some homework, and I told him to go to my website and find a piece that he thought was compelling or had a question about. So I'm going to start talking about that. If any of you want to look at said piece, it's on the CreatiVets Instagram. That was the piece that we announced the stream with, called American Citizens. It is also on my website. If you're on Facebook, check the comments. I believe CreatiVets added the link there, garrettleo.com. You can also go to my Instagram, manglazeblack, and find the link in my bio. So American Citizens is about my experience with working with veterans. I made the piece the first year that I worked with CreatiVets. So that was, I should have did the research. I think it was 2016. Richard, if you're watching, help me out. I think it was 2016 that I started. So a little bit about myself before I get into that, just so if you weren't here yesterday. I started with CreatiVets as a TA for the course, that 3-week course that I mentioned earlier at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. That's where I studied for my bachelor's in art ed. So I worked for the ceramics department and was offered the position to be a TA for the CreatiVets course, and I took it. I interviewed with Richard and just really fell in love with the idea. So I started, and for 3 weeks I spent, 9 to 4 every day with veterans. I did not serve, so I'm not a veteran, but I've always respected those that did and thanked them for their service. So for those 3 weeks, I was invited into a really close, small group, and they talked about their experiences and shared their stories, and they trusted me enough to talk about them. And I really appreciated just the conversations that we had with myself and Richard and all of our participants. If any of those participants are watching from the first class, please drop a comment so I know you're there. We have a couple current CreatiVets alum in the chat, which is really cool. But so for those 3 weeks, I kind of talked about what it meant to be a citizen and what it meant to be a civilian. And, they made a lot of jokes about me being the only civilian in the room a lot of the time. But it was all in good fun, because that was also where I got one of my coolest nicknames, Garrett 50 Cal. That's a pretty cool name. Thank you, Richard, for keeping that up over the years. But we talked about what it meant to be a citizen versus a civilian. And I made a really good friend in that program, and I don't want to drop names because I don't know if he'd want me to do that. But me and him had quite a few conversations over those 3 weeks about the work that CreatiVets was doing and what I was doing as a civilian, and the difference between people that were civilians and citizens. And for me, I wrote this little nice 2 paragraphs, I think, on my website. You can read it for a little bit more clearer version. But I talked about how civilians are those that don't understand the veteran experience or don't attempt to understand the veteran experience. And sometimes it's not at their fault, they just don't know. And there's that lack of conversation. And then there are those that are citizens that are aware of the veteran experience and are advocates for veterans. And that's where I wanted to be at the time. I wanted to be a citizen of the United States and support our veterans. So the piece that I made was about the story, my perspective on the stories that I heard. And at the end of the course, we have an exhibition at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and when it was coming up, the whole 3 weeks we're just kind of hanging out in a room, making art together and talking and just experiencing art and life together. And Richard came up to me and asked, he's like, I want you to make a piece for the show. Make something about your experience here for the show. And I didn't know what to do. I was like, I don't know. I don't even want the quality of work that came out of the class with our participants. I didn't want my stuff there because I didn't want to take away from their stories and their wonderful pieces that they made. But Richard was like, no, you need to add that perspective. So I made a piece about being a civilian and changing into a citizen, more of a citizen mindset of supporting and being there and being an advocate for the veteran experience and veterans in general, just being there for them and using my skill set as an artist and an educator to provide something that can offer a little healing, offer a little help to someone that may need it. So I made 2 pieces that are 2 portraits of the same person that I kind of embodied a veteran, a soldier, and one was during their service, and then one was after. The one during their service, their face was a little clearer, right? So that method that I used for the brush to smooth out the face, I used that on it. And these are like this big, about 25 pounds each. They're pretty heavy pieces. And I made the one that was during service, and it was about, what was the face of the veteran when they were active, right? Smoothed out, clear. They had their helmet on, so they were being protected. And then the post, when that transition to becoming a civilian again, right? That's what that one participant talked about. It's just like, how am I supposed to switch out of, being in the military and then switching to being a civilian, having to act like a civilian when you're not. That was something that we talked a lot about, and that kind of inspired me to make the second bust, or the second portrait. They go flat on the wall. And the second piece was, I took a rib tool, a serrated one, and kind of went over the entire surface of the face. So it's very subtle. From a distance, you don't see it, but when you get up close, you can. There's all these little lines in the face. The hair is combed and parted. There's no helmet anymore. It's the same face, same look. But you can tell there's a difference in the two characters, right? They're different. And I actually made it I made it solid, which always takes longer to dry and get it fired. I was running low on, or running behind in schedule before our show, so we fired it. Shout out to my boss in ceramics, Anne-Marie and Bowie, but we fired it super fast in a kiln to speed it up. And as I've been talking about, making sure that there's no moisture in a piece, there's no air pockets in a piece. The bottom mask, face part of the veteran portrait, the one that did not have the helmet, it blew up, and the face blew off. So the eyes were fine, the nose is fine, but the mouth just kind of blew out. And I was all mad, and I was like, I don't know, it's done, it's destroyed, I'm not going to do anything with it. Again, that mentality that I was still learning about, how you can always make more pieces, and things break and things go right, but it might help your piece, it might be for a reason. And I was all mad about it, and Richard was just like, no, I connect with that more now. He's like, I see the story now, that the face isn't there, he can't talk anymore. Me and Richard just that's the great thing about, and one of the things that really drew me to this program was the ability to just take an experience, take a mindset, and just change it a little bit. Make you look from the outside at yourself and kind of give you something else to think about. And I was all mad about the piece being destroyed, and it's not how I wanted it, but Richard was like, no, I see that better now. It's a clearer message now. So whenever I display it, I have all the little piles of pieces that blew off the face. And you could still see the mouth. The mouth was intact, it just had popped off with some other extra little pieces. So when we display it, that pile, the pieces will be up on the wall eye level, so you're staring into the face of someone that's a little bit larger than life. The pieces are a little bit larger than the normal head, a lot larger. And then on the floor, a little hidden, not highlighted, is the mouth, right? The ability to talk and tell that experience is separated from the veteran after their service. So there's a lot of messages in it, a lot that I can't claim sole ownership over with the ideas, because it was really a piece about my time during the first class with CreatiVets. At the time I was 20, and I was very intimidated with working with veterans, that just life experience. Where am I at? Where have they been? And considering myself worthy to be in their midst and teaching them things. And the piece was about, being reflective, becoming a citizen, and being an advocate for veterans and for their experience, and using the skill sets that I've acquired in my life experience to provide them with some healing, with some help, and giving them the tools to succeed with whatever they want to do. And that just my personal vision for my own self as an educator, as an artist, aligned with what CreatiVets is all about. It's all about empowering veterans using music and arts to get the tools to help themselves start healing, or find a path for healing, or find a place to go that can continue their education or whatever they're trying to achieve in life. So thanks, Dan, for bringing up that piece. That was a really good piece. I forgot that I had that on there. So that was great. Yeah, that's a really close piece to just me and my life. It's probably one of my most proudest pieces just because of the meaning behind it. And whenever I show it, I had the honor of showing it with our class's work at the National Veterans Art Museum. And as a citizen and not a veteran, to be able to tell that perspective of, it's not just the veterans that are being affected by this. It's everyone that's involved. So we have to work together. We have to have these conversations as citizens, as veterans, as the families, the friends. We're all in this together, just like how we are right now in the state of the world. We're all in this together, and working together is what needs to be done to promote some healing and some good vibes going forward. Okay, so this guy's done. I'm going to put him to the side for now. Let's change speeds because I want to let him dry a little bit before I start hollowing it. I need to get some foam in here. So I'm going to move my tools, make some room. And I'm going to go over some simple things that you can do, not related to my piece. These are just going to be things for you to all watch, take note of. And if you have clay, a couple people have messaged me like, I'm going to go out and buy some clay today. So if you have some clay, now's the time to make some stuff or take notes so that you can do it when you have clay. So let's see. We still have a couple people on here. Thank you for being here with us. If you're just now joining us, my name is Garrett Leo, Art Director for CreatiVets, making some pieces today. So let me get some clay. Sorry for the noise. If any of you have any questions on, all right, we've got a YouTuber in the house. Welcome. Excited to have you. If anyone has any questions on things that I'm doing or want to see any specific type of art medium or want to know more about CreatiVets, a couple options for you. If you want to learn more about CreatiVets, go to creativets.org. Follow us on Instagram at CreatiVets. Find us on Facebook. Like us on Facebook. Get some more information on what we do. I'll be talking about it for the time that I'm on here today. If you want to learn anything specific, right now I'm doing some ceramic sculpture. Just going to be doing this for the rest of the week, 12 to 2, throwing in some other little activities throughout it. I'm currently working on this ceramic bust. Letting him dry for a little bit. Going to change the speed. I'm going to be working on some pinch pots, some coils, and some slabs. It's like the 3 foundation techniques that we like to teach at CreatiVets when we're starting in clay. So I'm just going to walk you through that real quick. But if you're interested in drawing or painting or charcoal or whatever, drop a comment. Let me know because I've got all that stuff here. Wants me to shout out someone's store. Tell me more about the person before I give them a shout out. Interesting. So, to make things out of clay, I taught you a pretty out there method of building solid. Right, not out there, but it's not like the foundations of things. At least that's how I've been taught. That building solid is like a special type of building. So I'm going to take these blocks of clay, just kind of cut them up, and we're going to not wedge them. Wedging is a process that ceramicists go through to get all the air out of their clay, to make sure it's all kind of harmonized. This clay was like manufactured, so doesn't need to be wedged in my opinion for what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to kind of squish it into a ball, and I'm going to show you what a pinch pot is. Okay, so if you're joining this, I'm going to go over a couple techniques for ceramic sculpture. So a pinch pot is a technique to make very simple cup form. You can use this, and I'll use it later today. I think I'll do just a in addition demo of how to make a little jug form like this. I'll bring some examples in before I start doing that though. So I'm just prepping my clay right now. All right, so I'm gonna actually use a little bit less so I can have a little bit more control on it. Okay, so pinch pot, very simple way to make a vessel, a cup. So you start off with making a sphere of clay like this, right? Now, you can make these really finessed. I use them, and I like to leave my finger marks in it, let the clay be clay, but sometimes you'll want to like really smooth it out. So to make a cup, you start with a sphere. You press a hole in it, just like this, right? Not all the way through, maybe a little bit more than half. And something that I talk about a lot is having to feel the clay, having to understand the thicknesses of clay, which is your fingers. I've been working with clay for quite a while, so I'm a little bit more comfortable with it. You might pop your hole all the way through the bottom as you're working the first time. That's okay. Again, squish it up, try it again. As I'm working with this, my hands are pulling the moisture out of the clay, so you just need to be aware that your clay is drying. So if you get little cracks on it, it's okay. I'll show you some techniques. If I get anything, I'll mention it. So now that I've got my sphere, I'm going to do exactly what the title says of the process. I'm going to pinch it, right? Now you're not pinching it. You're not pinching it like this, right? Not with your fingertips. You're going to make like a duckbill, right? Now this is my technique. Some people might do it a little differently. I'm going to use the side of my finger and the flat part of my thumb, right? So I'm going to do two fingers to start on the outside, my thumb on the inside. Now it's important that you're pressing with the same amount of pressure with the outside fingers and the inside fingers. If the inside thumb is going too far, it's going to press through the wall and break it. With clay, you want to ease changes into it. You don't want to just go in and try to like rip it apart. Now you can do that, and it might not be super strong and stable moving forward, but you want to kind of ease into things, right? Let the clay do all the work. So I'm just going to pinch it, rotate like this, and I'm rotating it, right? Taking my time. Now you see, I'm getting little splits. That's okay. I'll go over how to fix that. Pinching, pinching, pinching. A little bit at a time. I'm not rushing. You'll get more cracks and more splits. You can take my finger and smear over that. You get more cracks and more splits if you're pressing super hard, super fast. Just take your time. As I'm spinning it and pinching it, rotating it, it's getting thinner and thinner. It's making a cup, right? Now the bottom is still very thick. So what I'm going to do, can you see it here? Can you see it here? See it here? Boom, right there. I'm going to press my thumb on the inside in the little corner. So for example, I want to chug this water. Let me see. Let me find a cup. Give me 1 second. Come on. Here's a cup. This was not a pinch pot. This was thrown on a wheel. We will be doing some demos on wheel throwing, mostly just kind of walking you through it. It's really interesting to watch. But this is a thrown cup, like this. So I'm going to be pushing this inside, what can I show you? This inside corner, right? Not going to be pushing straight down. I'm going to try to get that corner defined. Have someone coming in, mug 6674565. This is great. Thank you for being here. You're great. Thanks for being here. Take my thumb, and I'm pushing down in that corner. Because one, I didn't want a rounded bottom, so it's rolling. I want to have a flat bottom. So as I'm pushing in that corner, now I'm taking my fingers on the outside and I'm pinching it. I can do this one-handed. No biggie. Pinching, pinching, pinching. Now I'm going to go straight down on the bottom, pressing with my thumb to kind of even that out. Right? So now, from just a moment ago, I had a sphere. Now I've got the start of a cup. Right? Now, I do have, let me kind of fix this to where I want it. Making sure my sides of the cup are going straight up, right? I don't want them curved like this. That's just my preference. You can make a cup like that. It's up to you. But I want them straight up like that. Now I've got some crackage. Take a look. So that's just because my clay is a little dry. It's all good. I'm going to take a tool. I'm going to take my rib tool. Now again, other people might have different opinions on how to do this. This is how I do it for my own practice. I'm going to take this and I'm going to score it all over those cracks that I'm seeing. Cracks are gone. Now I've got all these little marks on there. We want to get rid of that. So let's talk real quick about tools. This is a metal rib. For those of you that just joined, we're working with ceramic clay. Glad to have you. Going over a pinch pot. So I started with a sphere, pinched it into this cup form. Now I'm going to smooth out the outside. Now we're going to use metal ribs for this. So we have a couple options, for ribs. I've been using a serrated rib. It's metal, it's flexible, right? But it's got that little scratchiness. We're trying to smooth things out, so that's not the best tool for us. I could use, if I didn't have any others, I could use the back of it, right, like that. Not going to do that, though. I've got other ones. We have a metal rib with no serrated edges. This I like to do more after, like, I'll use these other ones. These are made out of rubber. I'll use these before I use the metal one, because this will get all the extra clay off. This will kind of polish it, compress that surface a little better. So there's a couple different versions that I have. They come in different shapes, different sizes. This is a stiffer rib, right? So it's a little harder to squish. This is a softer blue rib, and this is a fancy one. This is very flexible, okay? I think I'm going to use the very flexible one to start, because I really like this one. I'm going to dip it in some water just so that it kind of glides on the surface and it doesn't fall apart. Or not fall apart, doesn't grip the clay and rip it. So I'm going to support it on the inside. This is important. If I'm just going on this and I'm not supporting the inside, like I'm squishing on as well, it's going to flatten. We don't want to do that. So every time, just like pinching, if I'm pressing on the outside, I want to be pressing on the inside to equalize it. So I'm going to take this, and I'm just compressing it, just like that. I'm curving it, right? The piece is curved, so I'm going to curve it. And now I didn't score the other parts of it because there's no cracks, but I'm still going to smooth it. Smooth it. Smooth it. For the whole circumference. Now you look at my cup. The outside is smooth, right? Now I messed up the shape of it a little bit, so I'm just going to reshape it with my fingers. Right? So now I have the start of a pinch pot. If I wanted to leave it here, I could leave it here. If I wanted like a little short cup. I'm going to use this in a moment to keep building on. Something that I did not mention, but I'm going to mention now, is whenever you're working clay, it needs to be hollow when you fire it, so that all the moisture, all the air is out. So if we look at my piece, this is a solid chunk of clay that I'm letting dry so that I can hollow it out from the inside. A cup like this, don't need a hollow, this is already hollow. But you need to pay attention to the thickness of your clay, right? What I always recommend is aiming for the thickness of a pencil. So let's see if I lined it up right. Here's my cup. Here's my pencil. Pretty spot on. Maybe a little thicker. I could make it a little thinner, but I aim for a pencil. Some people, you'll notice, if it is a cup that's based off of a pinch pot, could be really, really thin. I'm not that delicate, so I never get something that nice without squishing it or breaking it at some point. So if you have any of my work or have seen any of my work in person, it's usually pretty heavy. That's something that I'm working on as an artist, is I know that it's too heavy and I don't want it to stay like that in the future. So something I'm working on. So that's a pinch pot. Just a quick breakdown of the steps. If you weren't here, is you roll your clay into a sphere, stick your thumb in it, pinch out the edges like this, right, just like that. And then I put it on my table, and I press it down, press in the corners, right, because we want that clean edge on the inside. This is the area to look for, this corner right here, and on the inside in that corner, that's where it usually is the thickest if you're starting out with your first pinch pot. So always press it down like that, okay? So I'm going to set this to the side for a second. I'm going to do a quick check, see how many people are with us. We've got quite a few people with us. Thank you for being here. If you have any questions on anything I'm doing, any suggestions for what you want me to make, drop them in the comments below. Like my koozie? It's a pretty cool koozie. All right. So that was a pinch pot. Now I can use that. I can make a cup out of it, make a beer stand out of it, make a glass out of it, right? A tall pint-ish glass. Could make a bottle out of it. Could make whatever I want. Any type of vessel with that I can make. Make a little flower pot. The second thing, and another very important technique, is a coil. Now, I talked about coils yesterday because we use them to make all the components of my face. Today, we're going to use them in a different way. Now, I think I mentioned it or just kind of briefly showed it yesterday, but we're going to actually work with that today. So I'm going to move my tools. Pardon the noise. Oh. Forgot about this tool. One of my greatest instructors I think I've ever had showed me this, and I don't know if he came up with it or if it's a thing, but this is a cork with some needles in it. This is the best tool for scoring on a small scale. Best, because it really cuts into the clay. It really loosens up that surface, right? Great scoring technique. Great tool. I have a couple of these that I've made. Be careful though. That's all I gotta say. Okay, so coil. Have our clay. I'm gonna move all these little tiny bits of clay. I don't want to get that stuck in my piece. I'm gonna roll a coil. Now a coil, you can build a cup with it, or you can use it like I did yesterday to add onto my piece. First thing I do is I'm gonna hand roll it a little bit like this. Alright, string of clay. Again, we're still aiming for the thickness of a pencil, so I'm going to break this in half. And I'm going to roll it on my station. Now what I do, again, people may do this differently. This is how I learned it. This is how I do it. I'm going to roll it using this part of my finger, like the bottom part, and then the top of my palm. Got a question. Do you ever do tutorials on non-hardening clay, model clay? That's all you got. That's a great question. Thank you for asking that. This is our first, so if you're just joining us, you didn't hear any of my spiels earlier, this is our first virtual live art demo that we've launched this week. 12 to 2, I'll be here working on some clay pieces as well as some other things we'll do later this week. Tomorrow, doing some other art activities that you can do with things that you have at home. So what we're planning on doing is continuing this as a program to offer for all veterans, anyone interested in art making that need that outlet. If you're watching, we're on Twitch right now, YouTube, Mixer, I believe, and Facebook. So right now I'm working with a ceramic clay, but I am interested in doing some modeling clay demonstrations. I said yesterday, I think I have some in my studio somewhere. I'm going to look for it. Still, personal note, I'm unpacking in a new apartment, so I'm slowly finding all of my materials and getting a little roster of what I can do. But if you're interested in not working with this, and you have access to a model clay, you can do any of these techniques, any of these processes I'm learning with an oil-based clay. Now, just the difference, for those of you that don't know, this clay needs to be cooked in an oven, like a kiln, not just standard in the kitchen oven. A kiln needs to go up to about 2,000 degrees, I believe, is the temperature that I'm going to fire this to, roughly. There's some numbers. So this needs to be officially fired in a kiln. But if you want to make a bust like this, or want to make a pinch pot, you can still do that with the techniques using a different clay. You just won't be able to fire it and keep it if it's a non-hardening clay. Now tomorrow, I will be posting on the CreatiVets Instagram and Facebook. I think we might be able to put something on the website as well. We will be doing a salt clay. Making that, I believe the main ingredients is flour, salt, water, and a couple others. I think I found a recipe that we're going to try tomorrow. I'm going to experiment with you all. I haven't made it before, but we'll try it. That you can sculpt with. What I found out is mostly people press things into it, so I'll have some random things here I can press into it, and usually you make like an ornament with it or maybe a tile. But then you can cook that in an oven and it'll be pretty sturdy from my understanding, from my research. Won't be as strong as this, right? This is weather safe. This can last thousands of years buried in the ground if it's fired to the right temperature because it won't absorb a lot of water. But we will be making some salt clay tomorrow that you could do something right now during our self-distancing, right? So I'm going to start with like this shape. Again, quick review. This part of my finger, like the bottom part, and the top of my palm is what I'm going to roll on. And as I'm rolling, kind of rolling out. Let's see if I can get a side view. I'm rolling out, right, like this, like a butterfly. Do like a butterfly today. Rolling it out. If I see areas are thicker, press a little harder there. If the areas are thinner, just gliding over the surface. Aiming for thickness of a pencil. I think I'll go a little bit thicker because I will have to slip and score this. Now I've got a coil. Now what you can do with a coil, like I said, these little parts of the face, the brows, these little wrinkles, the lips, even this collar I made with coils, right? But what you also can do with it is you can make a cup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip and score this because my clay's getting a little dry. It's not as soft because it's been sitting out. So I'm going to score the whole thing, right? This is my serrated rib. Roll it over, score the whole thing. Now, I'm going to add some water to it. I don't want a lot of water. I'm just taking a little bit on my fingers. Just going over the surface. Right, just like that. I don't want it super wet. I just want to see a little shine. Let me grab my hat so I don't have my hair falling in my face while I'm doing this. All right, here we go. So I'm going to, let's see where you can see this. Right here, I'm going to start twisting it and do a circle shape. And now I'm going to go right on top. Right? Just like that, right on top. Going around and around. And now, I'm just giving a little press to it. All right, I'll do it right here so you can see it. Give a little press to it. So you can see I went right on top, right? Pressing it down, squishing it, reshaping the circle like this, right? Right on top. Now what I usually do, I'm going to keep building up because I'm going to make a tube, okay? What I usually do is I go up about 3 coils, and then I'll start smoothing out. You could leave the outside of your cup. I'm going to add this. I'm going to actually make this into a cup, much like I did with the pinch pot. You could leave this outside surface to see those coils if you like. You could even do the inside. I would recommend, however, smoothing out the inside because, again, we talked about just making sure that when you glaze a cup and you want it to be food safe, if there's all these little tiny lines on the inside, that'll be harder for glaze to get to, and if it's not sealed, little bacteria can get in there. We don't want that. We don't want to have anyone getting sick. Okay, so I'm rolling this out. And I'm not pressing. If I press super hard on this, and it starts like flopping around, you got like flat parts and bigger parts, you're pressing too hard, right? Just nice and gentle. Rolling it out. Okay, so again, I'm going to take this, take my metal rib, smooth, or not smooth, score. I'm just going to score the whole thing, just in case it spins. Add a little water with my fingers, just on one side, because when you're going up, it's going to lay on itself. Okay, and now right where I ended, right there where the last coil ended, I'm going to start. I'm going to go a little bit over it. Go right on top. Coiling up, coiling up, coiling up. Okay. Now, I've got my coils. Actually, you know what? Fingers crossed I don't break them. All right. Put him to the side so I can look up here so you can see a little bit better. Okay. Boom. There we go. Pressing it down. Kind of reshaping that wall to where I want it. Now, if I wanted to smooth this out, which I do, I'm going to take a fork, best tool. I'm going to hold the top, right, like this as I'm pulling it up. And I'm going to score. Score it up. I'm going to kind of go at like an angle. Angle to the right. Move my fingers so you can see it happening. Score it to the right. Going all the way around. Keeping it pressed down. Now I'm going to go to the left. So I'm going to flip it. Sorry about the dinging. Okay, so now I've got like a little tree bark texture. I'm going to get rid of that because I don't want that for my piece. And I'm going to take, this time I think I will use a metal rib. It's just a little tougher. My clay's a little loose. Again, supporting it on the top. Bending it. And I'm just curving it, pressing it up. Not pressing super hard, letting the clay do the work, right? Like I said, we don't want to force the clay. We want to let the clay just ease into that new shape you're suggesting. So now the reason that we use the rib is we're compressing the clay. We're making it stronger. We're pressing all those molecules together so that it's super strong. Now I could take this, I could attach that right on top of my piece. This is my pinch pot that I made. This is my coils that I made. I made this little segment, and I think I will attach it straight to it. So I'm just going to go around and kind of squeeze it to the shape that I want. That looks pretty good. All right. So now that's what I want to do. I'm going to attach it. These are a little bit different in wetnesses, so I'm going to score them both. Banding wheel is a great idea. This. Spin it. Score it. On the bottom of this, I'm just going to score it while I hold it. Boom. Again, same thing. Take some water. I'll take a sponge this time. Add some water to it. I could use slip. Not going to. Personal preference. Squish it down. Now it's important. I'm attaching them, so I want those clay pieces and all the water inside to kind of squish together and seal. So I'm squishing it down. Outside and inside and down at the same time. So I'm kind of going like this. Like that. Then pressing it down. Alright. I'm going to take my fork because now I've got this seam. I'm going to show this seam. Like this. Boom. Want to get rid of that. Scoring up to the right. Actually, let's use my fancy little cork needle tool. Too fine. Like the fork. Scoring up to the right. Going all the way around. And then score to the left. All the way around. Now because this is a attaching two piece, I'm going to do an extra step to make sure it's completely attached. I'm going to use my serrated rib again. I'm going to score it first to the top right. And then to the top left. Pressing on the inside. Because again, you want to even the pressure. If I'm pressing on the outside, I want to be pressing on the inside so that the clay walls do not move. Now I'm just going to go straight around it. just like that. Right, so now I got rid of my seam, and now I just have this little plate. You can see on the inside, let's see, right there, you can still see those little tiny coils there. I'll fix that in a second. I'm going to take my metal rib again, bend it, and I'm going like, kind of pulling up towards me like that. Again, pressing on the top. And because I'm just doing this, I'm not pressing super hard, just the surface, not supporting the inside. I'm not pressing hard enough to move the wall. Changing the direction depending on little bumps of clay that I see. The seam, Dan just asked a question, do I need to score the seams on the inside? No. I'll need to compress them to get rid of them. The reason that I scored the outside and I used the serrated rib and then the smooth rib, because I want to compress the surface. What that does is it makes it a little extra strong on the outside. At least that's what I think it does. So it'll make the outside a little bit more compressed, a little stronger. On the inside, I'm going to take a wooden tool. This one's got a little curved edge, wood. No water, because I want that wood to kind of grip the clay. And I'm going to hold it, and I'm going to push all those coils down to the right. So I'm going like this, right? I'm pressing like this. Not going straight down, pressing to the side, because I'm pulling that clay. I don't want to go straight down. It'll start ripping the wall. So as you can see, I have my hand around my cup, compressing it like that. Certain areas I'll switch, I'll go up them. Just trying to make sure all those little tiny coil seams are sealed. It's all squished together. It's one solid wall of clay. And again, that's just to make sure when I glaze it, I don't miss anything in there, and then there's no areas where bacteria can grow if I want to drink out of this. If I didn't want to drink out of this, if I wanted to use this little flower pot, maybe I wouldn't worry about that. For this I did. I'm going to reshape it a little bit, roll it down inside. And now I have a pinch pot at the bottom with a attached coil piece in the middle. Again, thickness of a pencil. It might be a little too thick in certain areas. Again, that's something that I said I was working on in my own personal practice, being more comfortable making things thinner. When I made those big figures, my coils were about the size of this. Gotti. It was about the size of that. So we always wanted to make sure that when you're building smaller, they're thinner. Otherwise, things will be too heavy. Okay. So I'm going to put this to the side. I'll actually just make this a bottle. Let's see how he's doing. He's almost ready. I'm going to get, give me 1 second. I'm going to go get some foam to lay him down, and we'll hollow him. While I'm looking for my foam, put some comments in there. We're still doing the title for this piece. I'll put them back up here so you can see them. If you come up with a good title, you might be the lucky one to have the official title from. Right now, the runner-up is Zombie Named Sue. I think Charles Winchester III was another nomination. And Mad Ronald Reagan. Dan said that. We'll go with that too. All right, I'll be right back. All right. Let's see. Okay, so I've got these two pieces of foam. We're going to use this to lay it down. I think the best name should win the finished piece. Okay, Dan. All right, buddy. We have some new people joining us, it looks like. So if you're just joining now and you weren't here yesterday, my name is Garrett Leo. I'm the art director for CreatiVets. This is our first week-long planned live stream for a class. This is a ceramic sculpture. I've been working on this bust since yesterday. If you missed yesterday's stream, it's on our Facebook page. You could still go find it, watch. It's about 2.5 hours, so get some popcorn, pop a squat. I started this yesterday from scratch. It's hardened a little bit on the outside, which is what I want. It's made out of a solid chunk of clay, so I'm actually going to need to hollow it. This clay that I'm working with needs to be hollow, just like this pinch pot, if you saw it. And that's just so that it doesn't blow up. If there's any moisture in it or any air pockets, as well as just solid pieces of clay, right? We want to have it hollow so that it doesn't crack or fall apart when I fire it in the kiln. So I'm going to take this apart now, which is going to get rid of a lot of the fine details that I made, but that's okay because I have quite a bit of time until I need to go back to work and stop self-isolating, right? That's the word? Yes, I think. I said it like 3 times today. So I'm gonna lay some foam down. Actually, let's cut him first. So I don't like cutting the head because then it changes the angle that I planned for of the head, like the posture. So I'm going to cut a part of his hair out. I'm just gonna put some of this clay away so that it doesn't dry out on me and then I can't use it until later. Put that to the side. Let's grab some tools. So big tools that I'll be working with today. Let's go over the tools that you'll need to hollow a solid chunk of clay. Someone just suggested that we should auction the piece and all proceeds go to CreatiVets. Someone paid you to say that. That might be what we do. We'll see what happens with it. Hopefully we can get it fired. So some tools that we'll need some loop tools, right? Here's some different sizes of loop tools. This is what we'll use to actually sculpt and pull out all of the clay from the inside, or scooping out the ice cream, okay? But we need to get access to the ice cream before we do that. So I'm gonna take my tool that I made. Just let me clean it off so that I make a clean mark first. If any of you are watching on a platform that you can share this video, here's my little time to say, please do that. Share, tag some people in the comments that you think might enjoy watching some ceramic sculpture, or any veterans that are interested in applying for some of our programs, because we are prepping to, the world's going to still continue. We just need to do our part right now by self-isolating each other so we can get over this together. But if you know anyone that would be interested in doing songwriting programs or art programs, well, no matter where they're at, we have programs. If you're local to Chicago, we are running some local programs here out of our location at the Bridgeport Art Center. So if you're interested in any of that, reach out to me, send me a message on the Instagram page or on the Facebook page, or send us an email, or apply on our line. Our application is online at creativets.org. But we're doing this now, these online classes for songwriting, guitar lessons. We'll have some writers rounds coming up in the next couple weeks. We'll do some more art demos, just so that we can get more resources out to veterans that need it, right? Because we're all stuck at home. Well, a majority of us are stuck at home doing the right thing, but we want to be there for each other, and that's what we want at CreatiVets. So I'm going to scoop out his brain, do a little brain surgery today. So the reason I picked this tool and I made this tool, it's just a butter knife that I bent in half at the tip, right? So I can scoop it in, turn it, scoop around, take the piece off, and then I have access to scoop down and hollow it. So let's see if we can do that. Now it is going to mess up majority of the texture that I spent working on this morning, but that's okay. I wanted to do that so that I kind of had an idea of what the finished piece will look like, and then I can kind of get it back later. So I actually might be able to take, I'm thinking, looking at this piece, I'm trying to find the best way to cut it. If I follow this seam down and connect it to here, and then follow this part in the hair, right? And then just cut out the widow's peak. It might be a solid chunk to take off and then reattach. That might be my best option. I think I'm going to do that. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to press in, right? And then I'm going to turn it. And when I turn it, that'll make that flat part for me to cut, or that'll make a flat bottom so the whole piece will come out. Now this is the part where I usually mess things up, so bear with me. That's a great picture. Just destroying the piece I've been working on. If you're doing something like this, you want to take your time because, you know, I can't really grab the face and hold it steady. So again, let the clay do its thing. Don't force it. A little bit at a time. Might have been a bad idea going for the hairline, but we're going to do it anyways because I'm already here. Just like that. All right, so now I've got this back part off. I'm going to take a different tool to cut the hairline now. I've got this little weird, it's like a little tiny X-Acto blade. We're going to cut the seam with that. So I'm going to go right on that edge. Boom. Why are you doing this to him? Okay, so quick lesson. If anyone wasn't here yesterday, I think I talked about it then. About to sneeze, hold on. Maybe not? Okay. So this is a ceramic clay that I'll need to cook in, or I'll need to fire in a kiln. So when you fire any clay, you can't have pieces that are solid like this unless you let them dry out for months and months and months. We're not trying to do that. I'm trying to make it hollow, make it lighter so that people can lift it up. So you need to hollow this out, just like our cup, to the thickness of like a pencil, right? People, let's see what this, I just got a quick notification. All right, I don't know what that means, but we're going to keep going with it. You need to hollow the pieces out so that they don't blow up, right? Because when you fire this, it's going to go to an extremely high temperature, and then you're going to have, the temperature is going to get super high, so the clay is going to shrink a little bit. It's going to constrict because you're just going to lose that moisture. So you can't have it hollow because any moisture, any thickness of clay in there, it's going to crack or split, right? So we have to hollow it. If I didn't want to keep this piece and I wanted to kind of recycle it, I could put it in a bucket of water and this thing will completely dissolve down into nothing again. But for ceramics specifically, the pieces need to be hollow. So I can actually bring in, once I get this to a spot, I'll show you some examples of other pieces that are hollow. But for example, if you go on my website, Thermal Mick, hello. Hi. If you go on my website and look at those large figures I was talking about, those are also hollow. Those are 6 feet tall, but the inside is completely hollow, and that's because you need it to be like that, or it will blow up. So when I'm hollowing now, I'm just going to take this scooper tool, and you're not going to see a lot of this because it's just inside the clay, but I'm trying to make a thickness of a pencil, right? Just like when I was making the thickness, when you're hollowing it, you also need that to be about the thickness of a pencil, right? You can go a little bit thinner if you want to get super crazy about it. I'm not going to. Just take your time, because again, if you force the clay, you're going to squish it, you're going to distort it. I'm going to switch tools. You want to just kind of let the clay do its thing. And just take out what you need. Now, something I will say that I usually forget, and I'm going to say it now, hoping that I remember towards the end. Maybe one of you can comment and remind me. You need to smooth out all the parts that you scrape up, right? So on the inside, don't worry about up here, but like towards the bottom of this, if you have any like pieces of clay like this, for example, where it's got a sharp edge right now, it's soft clay, so it's not sharp, but when you fire it, it becomes really sharp and it can cut your finger. So on the bottom, just smooth out that area. I'll try to remember that. maybe thermal mic. If you're going to stick around, please remind me to smooth that area out. You love clay working, glad. If you've got some clay, I know I said this, if anyone has clay at home, no matter what kind it is, if it's oil clay or ceramic clay like this, just start working with it while I'm doing it. You can ask some questions, or maybe you want to make something specific, put a comment below and I can help show you how to make it. That's why we're starting this stuff up, so we can kind of respond and get into more people's lives and help them out. Yeah, no problem with explaining. Please ask me as many questions as you like, because a lot of the times, like I said, I've never streamed before. It's kind of just like sitting in a room by yourself, talking to yourself for however long you do it for. So it's nice when people ask some questions so I can have some more things to talk about. Okay, so this headpiece, pretty much hollow, right? Just like that. And then I'll attach that back on. Just like that, fits perfectly in there when I'm all done. Now I gotta do the hard stuff. So I'm gonna scoop in as much as I can through the top, and then I'm gonna need to flip it over and lay it down on that foam that I brought in. That's just so if I lay this down on the slab here, it'll squish the clay in, right? Because this clay, as much as it's dried, it's like leather hard right now, meaning some of the moisture is left. It can still be squished. So if I like punched it in the face, like someone said, "Where are you going to punch your sculpture in the face?" I'm not going to do that. But if I did it, it would still bend it. Thermal mic, you got some oil clay, start sculpting. Send us some pictures on Facebook or Instagram. We'd love to see what you make today. So I'm just going to start hollowing. I'd love to make house and village out of clay. Yeah, go for it. That's cool. I'm first going to take this thinner loop of a tool and just kind of outline where I'm going to carve, right? Because you don't want to get rid of all of the clay. You want to leave a pencil thickness around the entire inside. So this is a hard part to do if you're working in clay. I will at some point most likely like carve through my face or have it come out somewhere. That's okay. You can repair it. So don't worry about that. Just taking out, let me move this. I'll move it here. Maybe you can see it better. And the trick to doing this is doing it at the right time. So you really need to make sure you're watching the moisture levels of your clay, because if I let this get any harder, I can already tell it would be a lot harder to hollow. This is a good moisture level, right? It's not super squishy. It's holding itself together, but it is getting a little tough. An important place to watch if you did a portrait is when you get closer to the face, all those areas that I added those deep set wrinkles in or textures, that's where I'm going to pop through. So like I got to be careful around these eyes because I really pressed deep in there. Same thing with right by the nose. I pressed deep in there, right? So just be careful. Just feel the thickness with your fingers. How much more can you carve in an area? Try not to drop the clay all over your studio. Try to keep it controlled because, like I said yesterday, ceramic clay specifically has a material in it that you don't want to breathe in. So over time, you keep breathing in a material like flint, silica, you'll get some cuts in your lungs called silicosis, and you can't really fix that. So you want to be careful that you're not making a lot of dust. Don't leave stuff all over the floor because you'll step on it, track it, make it go into the air, right? So if you're cleaning your surface, what I'll do is I'll take a mister, mist the entire table, and wipe it down with a sponge. I will not sweep it, right? Because I don't want that clay dust. For those of you watching, I'm curious,
comment on whatever you're watching if you've ever worked with clay before. Even if you haven't, just let me know. I'm just curious to see if I want to show any more like basic techniques that people might be able to use, or do a little bit more advanced stuff if people are familiar with clay. If you've ever seen anything like art making with clay, or like I said, any other material, let me know what you're interested in, because we might have access to it. We've had the privilege of working with some great partners that allow us to run some programs with some really fantastic art making techniques. If you're interested in art making and you're a veteran, in Chicago we're currently doing a program that allows veterans to work in ceramic sculpture, wheel throwing, which is when you make like cylinders and functional wear on a pottery wheel. We're doing glass blowing. We were going to be doing printmaking this month, but we had to take a pause. We'll be doing some drawing. We've been partnered with Art Reach Chicago, which is a nonprofit in Chicago. Shout out to them for being a fantastic organization and helping us bring some great resources to local veterans. So if you are local to Chicago, get in contact with us. We'll let you know what's going on. We've got a space at Bridgeport Art Center that we're going to start utilizing more and more as the weeks go by, doing some more of the streaming stuff, getting some classes out there to people, as well as offering some in-person classes. Me and my other half here, Zachary, is our Chicago team coordinator or team leader, and me and him do all of the instruction in Chicago now. We'd love to meet you and talk about how we can help you get started on your artistic career. Just going to show you some progress. Right? Just scooping it out, just like ice cream. Constantly checking the walls, so I don't want to get super close to any of the spots that I'm going to rip through. I'm going to attempt sculpting in the face now. Hopefully I don't go through an eyeball. Not sure if we have any other stream going up today. If we do, please sign up for our newsletter on CreatiVets.org. Keep in the know with all the stuff we'll be doing across the country, maybe in your area. Follow us on social media. We've got Instagram, we've got Facebook, we've got a Twitter, so we'll post some updates there of just like what we're doing. Opportunities to work with us. Once this is all done, we're going to need a lot of volunteers to help us at our location at Bridgeport Art Center. So we would love to meet some veteran supporters, some advocates, and get you involved with what we do. Get really close to the eye, but we're still good. If you know anyone that may be interested in talking about art or learning some ceramic sculpture, share this stream with them. Get some more people on there. Ask some questions. I think it's about time that I lay him down and start carving. I'm going to take all this clay, put it in this bucket. It's still good to use. It's still pretty hydrated, but I'm just going to put it in this bucket and then add some water to it and make some slip. That'll be easier than trying to wedge it back together and do all that. I'm going to take this foam bed for him, already lighter. Lay him down. And that's just so, look at that, you can see the inside of him. That's just so he won't lose his shape. Check that out. Again, just don't want to lose his shape. So, on the bottom, ooh, do I want to make, now's like the time I decide if I want to do that. I was debating carving in a little indent here so it would look like a shell on top of something. I think I'm gonna try that. Let's see. Always push yourself. Try some new things, you know? I'll show you what I'm doing in a second. Got someone else joining the stream. Welcome. Glad to have you here. If you have any questions on what I'm doing, please feel free to comment them. See, I just made a little indent there. Take a flat tool like this, kind of smooth out the new surface of the side. Right? Just like that. And we'll smooth out the old surface. Interesting. Yeah, just didn't want to leave it flat on the side, so I'm just adding another layer, more shadows, right? Right, I like that. That'll be interesting. Let me draw a little picture in there, write something in there. Okay, I'm gonna do that to the other side, and then I'll start hollowing. If you're watching, curious to know what you all are doing. I think we have someone making a clay house right now. So if you're making something art-wise, send us some messages of it. Send us some pictures, Instagram, Facebook, so we can see what you're doing. Maybe we'll do a little highlight reel on our stories. We'd love to promote some other artists that are working during this stressful time, you know? Make some art about what you're feeling. Now I made that little hollow part there. I'm doing that to the other side now. So you can't see it, but I will show you as soon as I'm done. All right, this is just, add a little extra something to it. Extra something to the piece. All right. UK in lockdown. Thermal Mick, are you from the UK? Have we gone international already? Thermal Mick, let me know. Maybe it's Mike. Thermal Mick or Mike? Okay. Hollowed out that side. Take a look. Oh, we can fix this up a little bit. Thermal Mick is from the UK. Well, I'm glad to have you. I'm in Chicago. We are also practicing our social distancing. The city is on a what was the term? Shelter in place. We are sheltering in place. So I've been in my apartment. New apartment just moved into. That was exciting. Past week. For those of you just tuning in or haven't heard before, in addition to working with CreatiVets, I work for the Chicago public school system. Shout out to anyone from my Auntie Ann or Chalmers family that may or may not be watching. We're all in the same boat, just kind of sheltering in place for the next couple weeks. So I'm glad I'm able to spend it with you making some art, talking about art. That's your first day on the lockdown. Well, I'm hoping you and your family and your friends are safe, bud. That's all we got to do right now. Stay safe. All right, so gonna carve out the bottom part now. You can see this is the clay that I started with yesterday, just like that generic shape, and then this was the clay I added to it. I didn't add a lot to making sure it was solid because I knew that I would be carving it out later. So again, I'm going to start by kind of tracing, and I'll show you this because it's better to see it now, tracing what I'm going to be hollowing. Again, looking for like the the pencil thickness, not hot dog thickness. Right, I'm just kind of tracing an outline. There we go. That shape. So this is going to make you laugh. Oh boy, what's he going to send? Who's going to send that? I'm going to move it a little closer so I can kind of pull that foam down, right? So I can get to it better. Just being careful that I'm not pressing on these edge areas because I don't want to lose those details. I'm going to take this tool here and just kind of clean up and flatten the actual bottom. I was getting water and someone said play something and I played a note on my guitar and they left. Oh no. Were you on the stream yesterday when we had Tim on talking about guitar lessons? Were you there for that? You were here earlier. Right on. I'm glad to have you back. All right, now I've started the hollowing here. Right now, what am I doing? I am hollowing the piece. So again, this is a ceramic piece, so I'll need it to be hollow. Is it an emoji? Emoji? I'll need the piece to be hollow before I can fire it. So I've already kind of hollowed the head area, right? Now I'm just trying to meet it in the middle, right? So I'm about here on the piece. Just so I know about here, and I've hollowed down to here, so I need to hollow this area right here. And again, just so that when I fire it, it doesn't break apart. It doesn't explode. And I can keep it. And now it is 2 o'clock, so those of you that are streaming with me, thank you. If you don't know anything about CreatiVets, check us out on our website, on our social media. Wherever you're watching, you should be able to find some links to those places. Sign up for our newsletter. Get involved with supporting our veterans. And if you know any veterans, please send them our way. Show them these streams. We'll be doing quite a bit of stuff this week. Tomorrow, like I said, I think I will be doing some salt clay making. We're going to see how that goes. See what it looks like. See if we can do a little sculpture with it. Maybe I'll do a little challenge for those of us that are going to participate. And then we'll bake it in an oven. 3:03 p.m. Is it? No, it's 2 here. 2 here, sir. Thank you for the time check. Just check and make sure I'm not hollowing too thin. Again, not pressing super hard when I'm holding it. And I'm kind of holding it and touching it in a lot of places other than just like one spot, because the one spot will kind of squish if I'm holding it there, but if I got my whole hand, it won't lose those details faster. Rochester. Yeah, that's why. I'm in Chicago. Different time zone. Get in there. Get in there. Yeah, just think all of this clay is coming out of the piece. That's all that weight that would be in there. Just kind of getting all the little pieces up. Into the bucket. Oh, it's 2:04. You said it was 3:03. Now it's 2:04. I'm confused. Uh-oh. See? I think I just went through the wall. Nope, I didn't. Close. Close. No, I've actually got a great angle to fix the bottom part of the shirt. I'm going to do that while I'm here. Right here, underneath the shirt, there's some details that I didn't squish together. So I'm going to do that now. All right, that looks looking good. All right, I'm not going to get too carried away with that because it might change again once I keep hollowing. Getting real thin on this wall. So I think I'm going to add a little bit clay back right here. It's getting a little thin. And a little Band-Aid of clay. All good. All safe. So I don't rip through it. I'm almost done with the entire chest cavity, and then it's just the neck, and then I can put it back together. So for those of you that have got me on right now, and you're just kind of at home practicing that social distancing, doing something, glad you're here. I know this is the fun part for me, but you can't really see a lot because it's all inside. But thanks for sticking with me, because in a second I'll be able to put it back together, add some more details. Let's see. All right. Just checking with my fingers how thick everything is, because I don't want to make it too thin. All right, now I'm going to start going for, I'll give you an update. Boom, pretty much all done. Goes all the way in, right, just for your example. It's about right here. The top goes into about here. So I've got this little tiny neck spot that I'm going to hollow out now. Take this out. And going into the neck. Again, always check your thicknesses on the walls, because you don't want to carve off too much. Like I did on this side, I had to add some extra clay. Ideally, we don't do that. Kind of taking out as much as I can. All right. Checking the thicknesses. It's looking pretty good. All right. Oh, and I see light. I'm almost through. Almost there. Boop. Done. Not done, but let's see if we can see through. Right? I've reached through it. So let me clean my workspace again. Again, we're saving all this clay because it hasn't touched anything, any other types of clay, or doesn't have any bits of anything in it. So I'm just putting it in a bucket, add some water to it. I'll actually add some water and show you all what happens to clay over time. I'm going to flip him back up. Now he's super light. All right, bring him a little bit closer. Now I'm going to start going a little bit more into the mouth area. Now I can carve out that neck a little bit more. Again, the key to this is taking your time. I'm actually working a lot more carefully than I normally do, because I usually rip through the face about 500 times while doing this. So thank you all for giving me the motivation to better my craft. Checking the thickness. Now he's light enough and sturdy enough, right? I wouldn't have been able to do this yesterday because he had too much moisture, but now that he's leather hard, he can kind of hold his strength a little bit better. Bucket. All right, now I'm going to try to sculpt into the cheekbones and stuff, so this is kind of like coordination. I've done most of this hollowing with this tool, but I'm going to switch to a tiny loop tool as I get closer to these more delicate areas. It's a much better tool. Just for your reference, hold on, I should pick them up. Right, super light now, carving through, trying to get really detailed in those face areas so that I don't have any spots that trap air or water. I don't want this guy blowing up after all this hard work I've put into him. Going around, checking all the spots. $5,000 sparks. I'm not really sure what that means, but thank you. I'm just checking with my fingers, not pressing anything, just kind of feeling how thick everything is so that I don't rip through
my face, but I want it as thin as possible. And I'm going to take, actually, take the back of this tool, give them some nose holes so that I can kind of see where they're at. Yeah. And what that allows me to do is I can check the wall thickness right there. Right there. I think honestly this is about done. I need more and I'm going to rip through a face. All right, Timmy's come back. Thank you for following. We'll be doing some more art demos this week. Take him off this now. If any of you are interested in learning how to make your own salt clay, we will be doing that tomorrow. I might have some more work to do on this guy tomorrow. We will see. Maybe I'll make his pedestal tomorrow. That will be interesting. His little stand. I don't want to just leave him freestanding. I'm just in really, really detailed spots. Again, trying to get it as best as I can. Hollowed, thickness of a pencil. This is really good. Proud of myself. Like I said, that's something that I always struggle with is getting things thin enough, you know? And I feel like it's just I don't take the time. Now we've got a lot of time on our hands to learn some new things or practice some old ones. Go through his nose again. Sorry, I'm like hiding him from you. Alright. It's pretty light. Pretty good. Definitely think I could take more off in this one spot. So I'm going to take that off right now. Lay it down again. And I could lay him the other way on his face, but I don't want to run the risk of flattening any of those details. Okay, like I said earlier, I'm going to remember to take some water. I'm going to take a sponge
kind of smooth out all the stuff that I carved so that I don't have
something sharp to cut people's fingers if they were to pick them up and put their fingers on the inside.
I want to smooth that out. Boom. Boom. Don't need to worry about smoothing out the top of the head part because I'm going to attach the head on in a second, the hair. All right. Let's do it. Put this guy back. Actually, I'm going to wipe my station a little bit so that it's completely flat. No bumps or clay. Shout out to Shimpo for making some fantastic tools. Not a sponsor. All right. Lift. Flat. All right, now is the time. Let's see how many people are still with us. We have a solid following. Thank you to those of you that are on Twitch, Mixer, Facebook, and YouTube. If you're just joining us now, my name is Garrett Leal. I'm the art director for CreatiVets, doing some ceramic sculpture. I just finished hollowing this piece. If you're unaware and have not worked with clay, ceramic pieces need to be hollow on the inside because when we fire them, they will, if there's any moisture in it or any air pockets, they will find a place to get out. And if there's nothing there naturally, it's going to blow up. So we don't want that to happen. So I just finished hollowing the piece. I could spend another, 5 hours trying to really hollow this piece out. I'm not going to. It's really good. It's really light, right? I can pick up with ease. I want to start adding some more details so that if you do want to just continue hanging out, ask me some questions about art, you can. But let's get attaching. So I'm gonna put my clay on my table, my foam away. Let's put them back together. So we've got this hair piece. I'm gonna do a little bit better of a job carving that, because I did so well carving the inside. So I was pretty smart with just taking off the top. I thought I might have had to take off the whole head, but that's going to fit on there perfectly. You won't even tell by the end that I cut it off. Right? You could actually, if I wanted this to be a cookie jar, I could add a bottom piece, keep this hat separate, this little hair piece separate, and I could take it on and off. It could be like a little secret container of some sorts. I don't think I want to do that. Sculptors would make great surgeons. Dan, yes, great surgeons. I don't know about that, but I like to play doctor here a little bit. We just did our brain surgery. I'm going to put them back together. So I'm going to take, I think I'm still use the fork. This one, I don't know. I've got a couple versions, but this fork's really good. Found it at a shop. You know what? I am going to use the needle one. So I'm going to score it. Now, because this clay has dried a little bit, well, not a little bit, a lot of it, right? Yesterday this was completely soft. Today it's hardened up a bit. You're going to want to score this and really press into the clay. So I'm not just going one direction the whole time. I'm crossing it, right? Crossing some X's. All the spots where this clay is going to be attached, you got to score it, right? Even if that's going over onto your sculpture a little bit, better safe than sorry, right? So I kind of went onto the face. Hard to see because these lines are super small, but you want to score the whole thing. You also want to score the piece you're going to add. So I'm just going to go over that. We're making X's. We're not just going one direction. And that's just so that we have more, we've loosened up that clay surface. And it's going to go back and be strong when it's attached. We don't want it to pop off, because when you fire clay, it is going to shrink. This piece will get significantly, not significantly, but it will shrink. I think it's like about 12%, depending on the clay that you have. So it is going to get smaller. So these seams are the weak points that if it's shrinking at different rates and it's really not glued together the right way with our slip and our score, then it could split apart, it could warp. That's kind of what happened with that American Citizens piece that I did. On the piece that had the helmet, if you look on my website and look at it, there's a piece that has a helmet, or even on our CreatiVets Facebook or Instagram page, we posted a picture of it to announce this. The seam of the helmet to the head warped. That's what it's called when the clay bends, because it's heated up to a certain part that it like loosens up and then gets solid. Vitrification for all you science lovers and ceramicists. When it was fired in the kiln, it kind of warped and then kind of moved a little bit because I had attached it but didn't attach it well. So yeah, it's just a little learning lesson. So I'm going to add some water to my scored areas, and I'm actually, because I don't have any slip at the ready, I'm going to do something a little different, and this is something that, again, once you kind of know how clay works, you can tell if this is going to work or not. I'm going to take a little bit of clay and make a really thin coil. Okay, so I've added my water. That's going to help fill those little clay spots from all the scoring, right, the little scratchiness. But I want to add a very thin coil of clay. Just add a little extra glue. Right? And I don't want to dry this out, so I'm going to try to do it fast. I'm just going to put it on the seam. Just a little bit here and there. So it's got something else that's attaching. Not on the whole seam, just the little areas. All right, I'm going to take my hair. Swish, 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 swish. This is, again, we might lose a little detail. It's all good because I'm going to fix it. Boom. Now, that's glued on. I can tell because I squished it to the point where the little water kind of squeezed out, the clay squeezed out. So I'm going to take my fancy modeling tools. Now, these, as I said, these are a little bit more expensive. I think they're about like $10, $15 for a little set of 3 or something. But there are tools like this, a little bit more affordable, $3. Same concept. It's a rubber tipped tool. This is a beveled edge one. So if it'll focus on that little beveled edge, right, just like that. And there's some that are just round. I'm going to use a rounded tip, almost looks like a pencil tip, but it is rubber. And I'm going to go along that seam, just like when we were sculpting it and adding things. I'm going to compress it because I want that seam to be strong. And what I'll do is, once this is done, I'll actually stop for today. I'll wrap it back up because before I go in and start adding water to smooth out all the details again and add some more details if I wanted, I want this clay to kind of relax a little bit because right now, this clay has been like moved a lot because I was cutting the inside out, and then by adding the seam on here, there's more moisture on the seam of the hair than there is anywhere else in the sculpture because I added that water. So if I wrap it with like I just use plastic bags. Let's see, just like grocery bags because I reuse them and want to immediately throw them out. Just wrap it up. I'll even like wrap it underneath the piece so that no moisture can escape, so that it can kind of redistribute the moisture of the piece. So I'm going over the seam again. And if there's any spots that I think could use a little bit more clay, just add a little bit, squish it in. And again, not worried about getting it to look exactly like it did detail-wise, because remember I added all those little textures with the my screw. Not worried about that right now. Right now I just need to worry about getting the piece attached back together. so. And then when I cut it, I kind of made these sharp, you can see the sharp seam because I cut it with that knife. So now I'm going to take this tool and kind of smooth out, round out those edges so it looks like from yesterday when I took that brush and smoothed everything out and made all those lines look like a slicked hair. I'm just trying to replicate that again. In a second. I'll probably take a brush to this tomorrow and just go over it very gently, but I'm going to do it now with the modeling tool as well. Smooth it out. Again, take your time. This, I will say, the streaming with all of you has made me a more patient person with the clay. Being more attentive to details. I was looking at this piece last night and comparing it to just other pieces that I made. The Darkest Dungeon series, my coal miner pieces are probably the most detailed and time-worthy pieces I've ever made because I built them over the course of a year. They were wrapped up months that I just worked on over a couple semesters. But this was a very well-rendered piece from how I sculpt just very fast, and then like when I take my time on pieces, I was really proud of how this came out. So thank you. The stream is getting a bit choppy. Well, it is a bit choppy. I don't know why it's like that. One second, I might have to end this now because my stream is getting a little green. Did it fix it? YouTube connection error. Okay. All right, so this is what we'll do. My stream's getting a little weird right now, so I'm just going to end it if I can't get my camera to connect again. Let's see if this fixes it. May or may not. Thank you for letting me know, Dan. And it's your 2, 12, 14. Now, I think it maybe just be my internet. So we'll end. Let me just take this off. Weird. Can you see me right now or no? Can you see this? Did that make it better? Nope. Ruh-roh. Maybe my internet just lagged. Nope, still choppy. So here's what we'll do. We're just going to end for today so that I don't have this weirdness happening. Yeah, bleeding pixels. We'll stop for today. I'll try to figure this out, problem solve it for tomorrow. Thank you all for joining me. We'll post some, actually, so everyone can see it. Technical difficulties. Yeah, still bleeding pixels.